Hello, everyone. Caralyn Mirand Koch here, your host for Voices. The Conversation Continues. Today, we are going to be having a conversation about body liberation. I am very excited to be joined by leading curve model, actress, body activist, and contributing fashion and wellness editor at Marie Claire UK, Hailey Hasselhoff, and model, influencer, and body positive advocate, and founder of Skinny is Not a Compliment, Kenni Powe. Thank you both so much for joining us here today. I am so excited to get started. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind just telling me a brief little bit about yourself. I know I gave you both a little bit of an intro, but if you just want to give us a little background on who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your story. Hailey, if you want to go first.
I'm Hailey Hasselhoff. I'm from Los Angeles. Feel like I'm already in a dating app having to discuss who I am. But no, I have been in the modeling industry since I was 14. I have been acting since I was 17 and had this beautiful opportunity to always be speaking about body activism through acting, through modeling, through design. I most importantly say that out of all the things that I've done in my career, being a body activist and a mental health advocate is probably my strongest suit and what I love doing the most. I've just now launched my podcast, Redefine You, a conversation for well-being, which is releasing June 24th on all podcast platforms, talking to people in the industry about their ownership to self and their mental well-being journey. I've dabbled into many different things within my journey of being able to get the voice out there that size inclusivity matters, and being able to speak authentically to who you are is one of the most important things in your life. Through that, I've been Good Morning America's resident style host. I've been This Morning style host. I have dabbled into 2 collections at Nordstrom. I have had a very long, lengthy career to be able to discuss it all. But like I said, I feel very blessed that through everything that I have done, it has brought me to using my voice to hopefully encourage you to find yours and why it's so special and important to amplify who you are and what your journey looks like.
Thank you, Hailey. And I'm excited. We have a lot to dig into, but Kenni, I'd love to hear from you.
Ooh, that was a limit. Oh, Hailey. I'm like, man. But I'm a military brat. I started in modeling. I was supposed to go to medical school. Let's just start there. Most people know that I'm a nerd at heart. And so I started in medical school and I kind of like did the whole dropout. This is not for me. And so I started in modeling later in my 20s and it kind of just flew. I never really thought that this would be my lane, but my whole like premise of life has always been women and uplifting women and women wellness. So it kind of just fit. I was like, man, the path is so crazy, but I feel like the destination and the impact is the same. So I started modeling, started influencing, and it kind of just went from there. And like Hailey, the premise of my journey has been body positivity and mental wellness, because a lot of who you are is how you think, you know? And so I'm just grateful that different brands have approached and appreciated that value that I have. And I just look forward all the time to working with different brands and just expanding that message. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. I am just so humbled and honored to be here with both of you. And you come from such unique backgrounds, but I feel like we're all kind of interweaved and on a similar path, and our goals are very similar. So I'm excited to dig into body liberation. I find this term, I don't hear it a lot, but it's similar and can be grouped into body confidence, but body liberation in particular is what we're here today to talk about. So I'd love to hear from both of you what that means to you.
Well, I'm going to first off and just say something quite real. Body liberation, I think, is a new term. I feel like we're developing throughout our years. Body liberation is not necessarily something that I use in my vocabulary, because I think body positivity is something that circles more around to the masses, that people understand what we're trying to achieve when it comes to feeling confident and comfortable and grounded in your skin. But if you speak towards body liberation, I think what comes to mind is being able to celebrate yourself in whatever way feels most authentic to you. And also this understanding and hope by which that everybody has a groundedness of knowing that we're always going to be ever evolving. So our relationship with our body liberation, our relationship with our body positivity, our body acceptance, our body neutrality, whatever you want to call it, is always going to be ever evolving, because sometimes people forget that, that doesn't mean that because one day you felt good, tomorrow might not be challenging. And that's okay, that you can still have body liberation and have a good day and have a challenging day.
Absolutely. I used to genuinely think that I would wake up one day and just be confident and that would be it. And I'd never have to think about it or worry about it ever again. So I think once I realized it was truly a never ending journey and not a final destination, we're never going to cross that finish line and be done, is when I think it became a little bit more manageable to me. Like, okay, I don't have to cross this big hump. I'm just taking little baby steps every single day.
Well, I've never heard of the term body liberation. This is my first time when I started this talk. I was like, okay, body liberation, okay, body confidence. I was over here like clashing my brain, like who started this?
I'd love to hear from both of you a little bit about your confidence journeys. I know that, as we said, it's a journey, not a destination. And I guess what for you has kind of helped you grow and evolve that? Because I mean, speaking only from my experience, I wasn't born confident. It's something I've really had to work at, and I'm always working at. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about your own journeys on confidence and what that has looked like for both of you.
I guess I'll start with this one. I was talking to some friends not too long ago about this, because I often get the question of, when did you start to like accept yourself, or when did you start loving yourself? And honestly, how society has that depicted notion of, if you're fat, maybe you were bullied in school, or like, it's just reality that you see on TV and movies. Yeah. And so I was just thinking, like, I've never had that. When I was growing up, my background and my family, I don't know, I was just always accepted. It was never like, go run around the block, or you had too much food on your plate. So I think that love in the household has always taught me how to appreciate myself, just what I look like. There's nothing wrong with me when I look into the mirror. And I know that a lot of people haven't had that upbringing, and everyone, has different stories. So I try to tell people that, like, that question is such like a sore, like, yeah. You're asking me from a preconditioned, standpoint, but I will still gratefully answer it. But I never really had that problem with confidence. Now, greatly to say, like everyone else, we all have bad days. Sure. Have bad days when we look in the mirror and it's like, girl, what do you have going on? Like, this is not it. But that's when I go back and I think about, like, what's instilled mentally.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of times I'll receive questions about, like, how did you get to be so confident? And I'm like,
what do you mean?
Could I not be?
So, yeah, I also think that, like, it's a thing of, confidence is something that everybody can struggle with. It's not just a size, right? So I think it's important to also remember that the person who's asking necessarily might not be asking it because they're going like, oh, you're a plus size model, or you're a curve model. They're asking because they're like, I'm struggling with my confidence today, and I'd love to kind of get a little bit more interested in what's helped you. And if you take away the word confidence and you bring in like the mental health aspect of it, it's really about just another challenging moment where you are self-deprecating yourself because you're not strong enough right now to walk alongside your anxiousness or your anxieties. And for myself, when people have always said you're so confident, a lot of the times I correct them and I say I'm very connected. I'm connected to my being. Like, connected to my being makes sense, because then it allows me the freedom to know that on my good and my bad days that I'm okay. That I can have that bad day to validate, process, feel whatever I'm feeling, to get back on the horse and get back to the good one. And then that's what this world is about, right? We're supposed to be here to feel. We're here to love. We're supposed to, evolve with our ideas of ourself and our self-growth. And in that, we, of course, are going to have moments where we're going to feel confident and grounded. And there's going to be moments where we're going to feel like we need to find the grounding from what's going to serve us. And so a lot of the word confidence, I think, sometimes can be perceived in many different ways in many different communities, and also in different cultures of how that's perceived as a form of recognition to how the person presents themselves. But I think if you say that you're connected to you're being, like you said, our bodies are ever evolving, then you go like, okay, I'm going to have that bad day, but I'm going to take ownership of that bad day and know that that's okay too, because I'm only human and my body is my body. And if we start to look at our bodies more as our vessel and our home and what they provide for us and how they actually reform from the pain that's been given to them, you can start to understand, I think, a little bit more on the focusing on what it does for us rather than the physical attribute that we feel society has planted onto us to pay attention to.
That's really beautiful. I've never heard the term feel I'm connected. So that's a really thought-provoking thing that I think I'm going to have to sit with for a little bit. It's true. I mean, it's almost like what really is confidence, and I think being connected is a really good way to explain that. So, being connected and to yourself and being self-aware, how do you both show your self-love? How do you get up in the morning and get to that point where you're feeling good? It could be from the inside or outwards.
I think every day I try, come on, schedules, but every day I really do definitely try to sit down with myself and write down my feelings. If I am in a good mood or a bad mood, I don't want my journal to be full of bad moments, or I don't want my words to be full of bad moments, but I sit down and I do that. I meditate. And you know what? Music is like the savior of mine. And I know like music has so many different energies, and like, I feel like music just always puts me in a good mood, let alone I connect with God. I am a religious person, so I do definitely pray and meditate. And honestly, I just started moving my body more, and that definitely helps me like in the morning, and it helps me appreciate my body a lot more. And I think those are just some of the things, just sitting down with yourself and getting to know yourself. And I love self-help books, and I love just thinking about new things. A little bit of everything, but most of it is sitting down with myself, journaling my good days, bad days, making sure I'm giving myself self-love, self-affirmations, looking in the mirror, knowing that you're bomb as hell, and moving your body. I mean, it just really depends on what are your weak moments that morning. Like, what are you feeling when you wake up in the morning and you're feeling something? Just really think about what you really need for that day. And sometimes going there and helping those moments will just make the day successful.
I love that.
I would say that, if you're having a challenging day, to lead with the 3 M's. So that's mindfulness, movement, and mental engagement. So get your body moving, like Kenny's saying.
Sorry.
Mindfulness, movement, and mental engagement. So get your body moving. 5 stretches right when you get out of bed. Mindfulness, being mindful with what you are doing. So even if you're having a challenging day, sometimes it even can help get out of your anxieties. If you start to list 5 things that are around you, 2 things that you hear, 3 things that you taste, and then mental engagement. For me, I think that the way that I like to validate myself, or the way that I feel confident in who I am and feel grounded, and I know that Hayley's good, is when I feel I feel like I can conquer anything, because I know that I'm good at what I'm doing, and I know that I can give myself that validation of self-worth within that day. And that can be something small or big or whatever you feel, but that's where really like putting your passion into your purpose is so important. And I think it can be self-care, can go from such a spectrum. It's like, it's either doing a really good skincare routine and meditation, being able to talk to your friends, and then it can go all the way to the spectrum of doing EDMR, which is like trauma treatment, so there's really a full-blown spectrum of just what's going to work for you in that day. And something I always say is build a really big personalized toolbox, because you never know what you're going to need and when you're going to need it. Yeah. And some days it'll help. And other days, if you want to write a gratitude list, you'll throw that journal against the wall and it's not going to be there for you. So, it's about building a big one, having access to it, and looking at your journey and your self-growth journey as something in which lives off of curiosity and exploration. And if you can start to click into that, it starts to make you go like, oh, this is actually quite cool. I'm like learning more about myself that I didn't even know, or I'm understanding that my inner child is coming out now that I never knew was going to be here and come back out. So now let's figure out what she's saying and what she needs. And that might not be what I needed yesterday when I had an anxiety attack, but it is what I need today. So what's that? How am I going to serve myself here? Right. So I think it's changing every step of the way. But as long as you are staying very self-aware and also open to the possibilities that are around you, to hearing new ways and practices that may serve you, you're always going to be in a pretty good space, I think.
I couldn't agree more with both of you. I think a key takeaway from that is being open to new things that might help, right? So like sometimes a face mask is great, but sometimes a face mask is not going to solve all my problems, right? So I think kind of visualizing it as a toolbox or something that you can, whether it's your journaling and that for sure, like that 9 out of 10 times is helpful. I think that's a really great thing to have like a multitude of things and resources that you can go to and look back to for when you need those pick-me-ups and when you want to just show yourself some love. I think there's a quote out there that's like, self-love isn't selfish. And I really love that's becoming more and more normalized, that it's not extra or unnecessary to take care of yourself. It's essential. Like you need to fill up your own cup before you can fill up others, right?
I just heard a quote that was similar, like self-love is not a luxury. No.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's a necessity, like you said, essential.
Switching gears here, I want to talk a little bit. I know we've all had a little taste and share of the modeling industry, so I feel like we have kind of all unique perspectives within an industry overall about kind of society. And I think we've all kind of seen the rise of social media and the rise of this body positive movement. I'm curious on what your thoughts are on the current status quo of society's ideal standards, and kind of like how far do you think we've come, and how far do you think we need to go?
Let me just say, like, I came into the modeling game probably a lot a bit later than you guys. So I feel like the world was a little bit more of a different place than what some of you guys have started or ladies have started. So, and what I've worked for were more inclusive brands. Now, I have noticed that when I've gone into like more mainstream brands, that the ball field is a little bit more tighter, and I'm not really making this, the threshold. So I think we've come a great way just from when I was a kid, and because I've been plus or chunky kid all my life, as far as the clothing and how the verbiage and just being more aware of everyone else's feelings and being more accepted. But I do think we still have some way to go where the beauty standards are still a little bit strict. What we see as acceptable is still in a box. So I think we still have a long way to go. I'm grateful for the change. I'm grateful for the opening of the hat of different brands, but I think we have a mighty long way to go. But like I said, I'm grateful for the change that's already happened.
Well, I could say that, I started out as a curve model at 14. I'm 28 now. So I've seen a lot. And a lot of change has happened. A lot of ticking of the box has happened. A lot of 10 steps forward, 5 steps back, convincing 5 steps forward, and I think that it's a game in which you have to start to remember that because we talk about this evolution within our bodies and ourselves, it's the same thing with the industry. We have come a long way from like the Crystal Wrens, and even when Ashley began her career, people forget about the supermodels that really paved the way for a lot of us, like Emmy, and what we have achieved since then in media. Because when I first started out, even the term plus size was so foreign. I used to go back to school and people would laugh and be like, "You're a model," and I'd be like, "I'm a plus size model." And it wasn't a normalized conversation to have, and it was still under scale. When it comes to media, I mean, I've just shot the cover of Playboy as the first ever European model, curve model. So in my way of the way that we have been, doing the press tour lately, it's one of those things of everybody's like, "This is amazing." And I'm like, "It's amazing, but all right, I'm ready to go do more," because we're in 2021, and to know that a magazine like Playboy has such an amazing stamp on what society standards of beauty is, that being able to have a curve model on there means so much more, because it starts to open up people's point of view of going like, oh wait, maybe there is a different idea around society standards of beauty, because that's how I've identified with this magazine for so many years within my life and within so many other people's lives, because it's a franchise. So it's continuing the conversation, allowing, you know, to appreciate where we have been and where we've gone to, but I think at the same time recognizing that our voices still need to be heard, that the conversation shouldn't be something that just stops, that ticking a box is necessarily a hopeful approach, but it's not something that's going to make change, and that we all have a space at this table, each and every one of us. I think that's the beauty in the body positive movement, and something we don't speak up about enough, is that there are so many of us, but at the same time, we all have the same goal of wanting to encourage self-love, acceptance, and respect. But we're all coming from different experiences, and that's what shows you that difference is the beautiful thing you can be, is being unique and being authentic to who you are. And in doing that, it's about translating that throughout the entire modeling industry and the entire media platform, to show that difference is where you really get to understand how art and fashion can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And congratulations on that, by the way. It's funny though that you say that, because it's like, okay, you're the first. That's amazing. It's incredible. But you're right. It's like, it's 2021. Why are you the first? Like now, like, why weren't you the first 10 years ago, you know?
Yeah, but I think in those instances, you can't necessarily harp on what could have, should have, would have been. Yeah. You know, you kind of have to just go like, this is an amazing opportunity for the community that we are moving forward. I feel blessed that I was able to lead that sort of conversation. And I do think as well, to do it during a global pandemic, raise this idea around radical acceptance and having to even accept my body for what it was, because I shot it during a lockdown, traveled to another country in a lockdown, and didn't have those opportunities that you normally would to get ready for a shoot like that. And it's just about being able to say, the conversation is starting again. And that is what you want. You just want it to continuously be a conversation that's being had, that more communities are hearing about, more people are feeling like they're becoming familiar with seeing different sizes, ethnicities, cultures, all involved in one. When you start to see that circulating on a normal basis, you start to identify within your own circle how you can really speak up and make a change, I think.
Absolutely. So it's like we have these opportunities, we're going to take them, and we're also going to pull up everyone next to us in the process and just keep it going, keep it moving forward, because that's all we can do, right? Is keep it moving forward. Switching gears a little bit, what advice would you give to somebody on accepting themselves? I know we've all done a tremendous amount of work in this space, but for someone who is still kind of working on it, and what would you advise them?
That you are special just as you are, right here, right now, that there's nothing that you necessarily need to change about who you are, to start taking off the leeches of other people's opinions of yourself and start to see you. That for so long as you grow into yourself, you start to get society standards of beauty that gets attached to you. You get your parents or your family members saying about your body attached to you, a loved one that you dated attached to you, and you start to actually believe that that's a part of your reality. And are redefining like you can redefine yourself on a day-to-day basis. And within that, it gives you the power to know that you can see yourself how you want to be seen. So when you start to look at it from that point of view, you start to go like, okay, wait, what things about myself do I love? And maybe it's a little bit harder to find, but as long as you can write down one or two things that you love about yourself every single day and start to believe it and start to make others believe it because you believe in yourself, it allows for a space of growth and allows for a space of self-assurance.
Yeah. Ooh, that was all good.
Yeah.
I would say there's beauty in your indifference. That's one thing that I've always like. You should be able to appreciate how different you are from your neighbor, and that's power. Also, I noticed like a lot of people are stuck up with being one-dimensional. You're a multi-dimensional being. I can laugh one day, and I can laugh 5 minutes and cry the next 5 minutes. So don't be so stuck on being like one-dimensional flat plane. You're a multi-dimensional being. You are layered.
Yeah.
You beauty on the inside, outside, deep down, and you're not perfect. Things happen, but you're perfectly imperfect. Just there's so much to appreciate, and I think a lot of things just starts with getting to know yourself and forgiving yourself for not knowing how beautiful you really are. And I think once you realize and take off others' projections, because that was one thing growing up for me, is like, I'm not, your perspective of me is not my business. I am beautifully, wonderfully made because that's who I am, not because of what you said. So like just taking off the projections of others, just like Hayley said, and just walking in your superpower that there's only one you. And you were created, and there's only one you in this world. So, yeah. And I think that just should excite you enough that there's no one else like who you are. So just be you and walk in that superpower. So I always call it superpowers because it is. No one else has this.
Love that. I just admire the both of you, and I can't wait to stay connected. We definitely want to keep this conversation going. So Elomi fans, please let us know what you think, and we would love for you to share your stories and your opinions on what we've talked about today as well. So comment and share with us, and be sure to stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.